Shoulder pain is a common problem for so many people, and it can really affect the use of the arms for day-to-day activities. So I'm going to provide you with 7 exercises using a variety of equipment to enhance joint stability. Hi everyone, and welcome to Exercise for Health, and I'm going to explain a variety of different shoulder exercises that you can do at home with and without equipment, so you then have a choice of what works best for you. I've already done a video on isometric exercises for the shoulder, which explains a bit more about the rotator cuff muscle group, and you can watch that by clicking the pop-out banner up here or click the link in the description below. But any of the dynamic exercises that I take you through in this one can be performed on their own on 2 or 3 days of the week as a means to manage your shoulder pain. I will leave links in the description below to the equipment that I'm using in case you want to purchase your own. But as always, the exercises may not be appropriate for everyone depending on your condition. So if you're unsure, check with your health professional first. That being said, let's go through them. Right, the first shoulder exercise option I have for you is going to be lying on the floor. If you don't feel comfortable with that, then you can do this in your bed. I'm also going to be using a couple of water bottles as hand weights, but you may find you won't need that. Just the weight of your arms might be enough to work those deep shoulder muscles. We're going to be doing what I call the Watty arm raise, which is essentially where each letter, W-A-T-Y, identifies a particular position of your arms. So the first one is the W. So you're going to lie down on your front. If you've got hold of the hand weights, just keep them out to the side, and you want your elbows to be slightly lower than shoulder height. Keep your head down, and then the movement from there is you're going to raise the arms up towards the ceiling as high as you can, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and then lower back down. So that will be the movement for the W. So we're maintaining that bend in the elbow joint. Hold it at the top for a split second, and you do that for 10 reps. You can then move on to the A. So that's where I'm going to change my arm position now down to here. So they're just down by the side of the hips. And again, keeping the arms straight. I'm then going to raise the arms up as high as I can, hold for a split second, then lower back down. So again, I do 10 reps in that position. Then you can move on to the T. So that's where we've got the arms directly out to the side, so they're the same level as your shoulders. Again, I've got palms facing down, but for this one, if you prefer, you can have it so you've got your thumbs pointing upwards so the palms are facing above your head. And then the movement from there then, again, is to raise the arms up, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and then lower back down. So again, you do 10 reps, slow and steady, holding at the top. And then the final one is the Y. So that's where I'm going to take the arms above my head on a slight angle, so making that Y shape. And again, thumbs pointing upwards, I'm going to then raise the arms up, hold, and then lower back down. Again, doing a set of 10. Right, the next exercise is what I call the L arm fly. It's called the L arm because your arm's going to be in an L-shaped position. So for this, I'm going to be using a kettlebell. I am doing this kneeling on the floor, but to be honest, you can do this seated and even standing if you prefer. I'm using a kettlebell because once we've got hold of the weight, which will be above the fist, it creates this unstable position, which effectively means then the rotator cuff works that much harder. I am using a 10 kilogram kettlebell. To be honest, for this particular exercise, that's far too heavy. You probably, especially if you've got shoulder pain, you probably only need like a 4 kilogram kettlebell, maybe as much as a 6 or an 8 at the most. But just to show you, because this is the only one I've got, you're going to start off with your elbow in front of you. So you've got hold of the kettlebell upside down and the elbow's just slightly lower than shoulder height. And then from there, you're then gonna take the elbow out to the side and the kettlebell's wobbling around. So my shoulder's having to work that much harder to stabilize it, and then bring it back to the front again. So we're just working through all those muscles in the shoulder until you've done the movement going out to the side and back again to the front. Once you've done your desired number of reps on one arm, you can then take the kettlebell into the other hand and then do the same on the opposite side. Right, we're now going to move on to the overhead press. For this one, you're going to need a small looped resistance band that you can then have it around the outsides of the wrists. I'm doing this seated, but you could actually do this standing if you prefer. So to start off with, we want the arms in front of you so that the band is about the same height as the shoulders. And we want to externally rotate the shoulder joint before you start doing the presser movement with the arms. So to do that, think about bringing the elbows in, and at the same time you're trying to stretch the band to take the wrists outwards. And you should feel a lot of tension then in the muscles around deep inside the shoulder joint. So once you've got that stretch on the band, you're then going to press the arms up overhead. And depending on your mobility will depend on whether you go straight up over your head or whether you need to go a little bit further forwards, and then slowly bring it back down to that start position. So as you're going through the movement, just make sure that you maintain tension on the band. Don't let the elbows go out really wide. Keep the elbows in and trying to keep the wrists out so you can maintain the tension on the band. And you should be aiming to do about a set of 10 slow repetitions. Now we're going to move on to shoulder rotations. So for this one, you're going to need a dumbbell, a particularly light dumbbell, not too heavy. And what you're going to do is, in a seated position, I'm going to bring one foot up onto the chair so that I can now, on this bent knee, I can rest my elbow with the dumbbell in hand. So I'm resting my elbow, so that becomes my pivot point. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to allow the shoulder to rotate from that position as I drop the dumbbell down, trying to get my arm to be parallel to the floor. Now when you get to that point, we want to hold it for about a count of 5. After you've counted for 5 seconds, we're then going to bring it back up to the start and then immediately then begin to lower it back down again. So the idea is the movement itself is working into strength in the rotator cuff, but holding it in this compromised position is having to work a lot more stability into the actual shoulder joint. So that's why we're going to hold it for 5 seconds at the bottom. So again, do this for about 10 reps like you've done some of the other ones, but with this one you're doing a 5-second hold before you return back to the start. Okay, now we're going to move on to the linear saw. So this essentially means I'm going to be using a resistance band that's anchored to a point that's about the same height as my elbow. If I drop my elbow into my side, where my hand is now, that needs to be about a similar sort of height. I mean, it can be slightly higher or lower, but around that height would be ideal. So the band is to my left, which means I'm going to be using my right hand. So I've got hold of the grip. Now I'm going to externally rotate my shoulder first of all. So with the elbow tucked in, I've got my fist directly in front of me, and there should be some tension on the band. If it's too much and you're struggling to try and maintain it, then just step a bit closer to the anchor point. And if it's really easy and you don't feel any tension at all, then obviously you can go further away to make it harder. So find that balance point where it's challenging enough but not too much. The movement then is it's going to be a linear movement where we're just taking the arm out in front of you and then bringing it back to the side of the body. So from there I'm going to straighten the arm out, but as I'm doing that, obviously I'm increasing the lever length. It feels like it's trying to pull my arm across. What I want to try and do is make sure I keep the arm out to the side and then bring it back in until the fist is close to the body, and then take it away from the body again out in front. So it's the saw in action, and you're going to do that slowly about 10 times, and you should feel a huge amount of work and activity going on deep in the shoulder, around the side of the shoulder as you go through the movement. The next one is going to be the drop catch. Now for this you're going to need a tennis ball or a small ball of some kind that's about that sort of size. And I want you to hold on to the ball. If you start off with the arm straight directly out in front of you, and then take your arm out to the side at about a 45-degree angle. So that's the kind of angle that we want because we're working in the scapular plane. Try and keep your shoulders down as you do this one. There will be a tendency as you're doing the drop catch movement with the ball that you might start to shrug your shoulders up. So make sure you keep the shoulder blades down, and then effectively what we're going to do is drop the ball, catch it, and then bring it back up to the start. Drop, catch, and then bring it back up. So it's not really much of a movement. It's only really this tiny movement that we're working in. But it's a really good way of activating those deep rotator cuff muscles in the shoulder. You might do this for a period of time, so you could do it for say 30 seconds, and then you could then switch and do it on the opposite side, or you could do it for a number of repetitions, depending on how it feels for you. Right, this next one is scapular rotations, and this is working slightly differently to the other ones that we've been doing, in the sense that with the other ones, think of the shoulder as a ball and socket joint. We've been actually moving the arm with inside the actual socket itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move the socket around the arm. So the arm's going to stay fixed. So for this, you're going to need a wall. I'm going to place my hand on the wall, so my hand is about the same height as my shoulder, and I want the arm to be completely straight. And then I step myself a little bit further away from the wall, so it feels like some of my weight is then going into the actual hand, so I can then create some tension in the rotator cuff muscle group in that shoulder. So I'm going to keep the arm straight, and then essentially once I've got some weight in it, and I keep my shoulder blade down, so don't let the shoulder blade pop up, keep the shoulder down, and I'm then going to move my scapula around this arm. So essentially I'm going to begin to rotate, bringing my chest outwards, and then rotate back inwards, going the opposite way. So all the while as I'm going through the motion, I'm keeping the shoulder blade down, so restricting any movement of that, but I'm moving the actual shoulder blade around the arm itself. So each time you take it outwards and then inwards, count that as 1 repetition, and then you do it 10 times slowly, and you'll start to feel, I can already start to feel it now, a lot of sensations going really deep into the shoulder joint. I hope this video has given you 1 or 2 exercise options to help reduce your shoulder pain. If it has helped, then please give it a like by clicking the thumbs up button below, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. You can check out the description below for further information and ways that you can help support this channel. But thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay active and keep moving to feel better.